Owen Blackwood pressed his forehead against the cold glass of the observation window, watching the rain hammer against the biodome. The research station had been quiet for 16 months now, ever since the funding dried up and the university recalled everyone except him. They let him stay because someone needed to maintain the alien flora samples, and Owen had nowhere else to go anyway. The greenhouse hummed softly behind him, filled with plants that glowed faintly in the darkness. Specimens from a dozen worlds, each one catalogued and studied until he knew their patterns better than he knew his own thoughts. This was his life now. Simple, isolated, safe. Thunder rolled across the hills, and Owen turned back to his workstation. The protein sequencer needed recalibrating, and he had another 3 hours of data to log before sleep. He reached for his coffee, then froze. Something moved in the rain outside. Owen squinted through the glass. The station's perimeter lights cast yellow pools across the muddy ground, and there, stumbling between them, was a figure. Human-shaped, but wrong somehow. The way it moved, lurching and desperate, sent ice down his spine. He grabbed the emergency radio. Dead. The storm must have taken out the relay tower again. The figure collapsed just outside the main airlock. Owen's hands shook as he pulled on his rain jacket. Every instinct screamed at him to stay inside, to pretend he saw nothing. But 16 months of loneliness had not completely erased his humanity. He cycled through the airlock and stepped into the downpour. The figure was a woman, and she was glowing. Not with reflected light, but with something internal, pulsing beneath her skin like bioluminescent plankton in deep water. Her clothes were shredded, her body covered in burns and cuts that leaked something too silver to be blood. But what stopped Owen's heart was her belly, swollen and radiating light so bright he could see the shadows of movement within. Her eyes opened. They were violet, with pupils that split horizontally like a goat's. "You," she whispered, and her voice carried harmonics that human vocal cords could never produce. "Owen Blackwood." He stumbled backward. "How do you know my name?" "Your genetic signature is written in my womb." She clutched her stomach, and the light pulsed brighter. 3 years ago, the Meridian Station disaster. You donated blood for the survivors. Owen's mind reeled back. The station explosion. He had been working nearby, had given blood because they needed every compatible donor they could find. The alien survivors had some kind of medical technology that could adapt human blood for their use. He remembered signing forms, remembered the needle, remembered leaving and never thinking about it again. That was just blood, he said. For transfusions, for synthesis. Thessaly dragged herself upright, leaving a trail of luminous fluid on the ground. My people face extinction. Our genome is collapsing. We need new genetic material, fresh combinations. Your blood carried potential. I was chosen to bear the first generation. The first generation of what? She looked at him with something between pity and reverence. Of our survival. Of your legacy. Her face contorted in pain, and she grabbed his wrist with shocking strength. Help me inside. They are coming early. The trauma has triggered the birth sequence. Owen wanted to run. Every rational part of his brain screamed this was impossible, that he should seal the airlock and call for help. But her grip was iron, and beneath his fear, something else stirred. Curiosity, responsibility, the terrible weight of being needed. He got her inside. The greenhouse became a makeshift delivery room. Owen cleared a workspace between the Venusian ferns and the Proxima roses, their petals closing against the disturbance. Thessaly's breathing came in harsh gasps, her skin brightening with each contraction until the whole room glowed like dawn. I don't know how to do this, Owen said, his hands hovering uselessly. I study plants, not medicine. You do not need to know. Thessaly arched her back. and the symbols he had thought were burns began to move across her skin, rearranging themselves into patterns that hurt to look at. The children will know. They have been learning since conception, absorbing everything through my neural link. They are already more than we are. More than you are. Her body convulsed, and light exploded from her center. Owen shielded his eyes, but he could still see through his fingers as three forms emerged from the radiance. Not born in blood and fluid like human children, but precipitating out of pure energy, condensing from light into flesh. They landed on the table, each no larger than his forearm, their skin shifting between human pink and alien silver. They did not cry. They sat up immediately, their eyes opening to reveal the same violet irises as their mother. And they looked at Owen with recognition. "Father," the first one said. Its voice tiny but clear. "Genetic donor," the second corrected, tilting its head with inhuman precision. "Protector," the third finished. And they all smiled identical smiles that showed teeth just slightly too sharp. Owen's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, staring at the three impossible beings who watched him with ancient eyes and infant faces. Thessaly's light was fading now. She reached out one trembling hand and touched the nearest child, the one who had called him father. "Their names are written in their cells. They will tell you when they are ready." Her eyes found Owen's. "Keep them safe. The corporation that sponsored my mission will want them back. They see only weapons and profit. But these children are more. They are hope." "Wait," Owen said, crawling closer. "You cannot just leave me with them. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to raise children, let alone these. You will learn." Thessaly's form was becoming translucent, dissolving like mist in sunlight. "You have always been good at studying new life." Then she was gone, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air and three hybrid children who stared at Owen with expectations he could not begin to meet. The rain had stopped. In the sudden silence, Owen heard it, the distant whine of engines. Atmospheric craft, multiple signatures, approaching fast. The first child climbed down from the table with disturbing agility and took Owen's hand. Its skin was warm, its grip surprisingly strong. "They come for us," it said simply. "Will you run, or will you fight?" Owen looked at the three small faces, at the trust in their impossible eyes, and felt something shift in his chest. 16 months of isolation had made him forget what it meant to be responsible for another life. But before that, before the loneliness and the quiet, he had been someone who helped. Someone who saved lives when he could. He stood up, pulling the child with him. "We run," he said. "And if they follow, then we fight." The engines grew louder, and through the greenhouse glass, Owen saw lights descending through the clouds. Red and cold and full of purpose, he gathered the children close. These strange new lives that carried his genes and a dying species' desperate hope. And he ran into the night with no plan, except to keep them breathing until morning. The Luminescent Bargain had been made, and Owen Blackwood would pay its price in full. Jericho Vance had tracked targets across 17 worlds, and none of them had ever made him hesitate. He was good at his job because he never asked questions, never wondered about the lives he disrupted or ended. The credits transferred, the contract closed, and he moved on. Clean, simple, professional, but standing in the abandoned mining settlement where Owen Blackwood's heat signature had finally gone cold, watching three small figures play among the rusted equipment. Jericho felt something crack in the armor he had spent 30 years building. The children were glowing, not constantly, but in pulses like heartbeats made visible. They chased each other between the old excavators, their laughter carrying strange harmonics that made his teeth ache. One of them, the smallest, stopped suddenly and turned to look directly at him. Despite the active camouflage, that should have made him invisible. "Hello, Hunter," the child said, its voice clear across 50 meters of empty ground. "We have been waiting for you." Jericho's finger tightened on the neural disruptor. The Helios Corporation had been explicit in their instructions. Retrieve the hybrid specimens, eliminate any witnesses, collect the bonus for speed. 3 days he had been tracking them, following the trail of strange energy signatures and abandoned shelters. The botanist had proven surprisingly resourceful, but resources ran out eventually. He had found them. The job was nearly done. So why could he not pull the trigger? Owen Blackwood emerged from one of the buildings, his clothes torn and stained, his face gaunt from exhaustion. He placed himself immediately between Jericho and the children, though he had no weapon, no advantage. Nothing but his body and whatever desperate courage kept him moving. "I know why you are here," Owen said, his voice steady despite the fear Jericho could smell on him. "But you cannot have them." Jericho deactivated his camouflage and stepped into view. He was tall, his frame augmented with military-grade enhancements that made him more machine than man. His face was hidden behind a helmet that fed him tactical data, threat assessments, probability matrices. Everything except the one piece of information he actually needed: what to do when the mission felt wrong. "The corporation owns their genetic material," Jericho said. His voice modulated through the helmet speakers. "You signed away your rights when you donated blood. The hybrid program is proprietary technology. They are children, not technology. They are products. Expensive ones. My contract is for 2 million credits." Jericho raised the disruptor. "I have never failed a contract." The 3 children moved closer to Owen, their small hands clutching his legs. The smallest one, the one who had spotted Jericho first, looked up at him with eyes that seemed to see through the helmet, through the augmentations, through everything he pretended to be. "You are like us," the child said. Jericho froze. "What? Hybrid, modified, made from pieces of different worlds." The child tilted its head. "We can see your genetic structure. 73% human, 19% Ketharan, 8% synthetic. You are not pure either." The disruptor wavered in Jericho's hand. He had never told anyone about his heritage. His mother had been human, his father a Ketharan war refugee. The mixing had been illegal, the pregnancy terminated by force. Except his mother had run, had hidden, had given birth in a facility that asked no questions. Jericho had spent his whole life hiding what he was, using illegal gene masks and forged documentation to pass as fully human. "That is different," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Owen stepped forward, his fear transforming into something harder. "You hunt your own kind for people who would see you destroyed if they knew the truth. Does that seem different to you?" Jericho's tactical systems screamed warnings as Owen approached, but he did not fire. The botanist stopped just beyond arm's reach, his eyes searching the reflective surface of Jericho's helmet as if he could see through it. "I have read about the Ketharan purges," Owen said quietly. "After the war, they hunted down every hybrid child they could find. Said mixing the species was an abomination. Most of those children died. But some survived by hiding what they were, by becoming invisible, by doing whatever it took to stay alive." Jericho's jaw clenched behind the helmet. "You know nothing about me. I know you are still hiding, still running from what you are." Owen glanced back at the 3 children. They do not have that luxury. They glow. They are obviously different. The only way they survive is if people choose to protect them instead of profit from them. The middle child stepped forward, moving past Owen with unsettling grace. It reached up and placed one small luminous hand against Jericho's armored leg. The contact sent data flooding through his neural interface: genetic markers, cellular structures, evolutionary pathways. The child was not just hybrid. It was next. The next stage of something neither fully human nor fully alien, but genuinely new. And buried in that data, Jericho saw traces of his own genetic patterns. The Ketharan elements that he had spent a lifetime concealing. These children carried similar markers, similar combinations. They were not identical to him, but they were family in ways that blood alone could not define. "Father calls you enemy," the child said, looking up at him. "But we call you cousin." Jericho's hand shook. The disruptor dropped to his side. "I have a contract," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Contracts can be broken," Owen said. "Choices can be made." Jericho's helmet displayed incoming messages from the Helios Corporation. Status updates demanded. Timeline confirmations required. Penalty clauses activated if he delayed much longer. 2 million credits hanging in the balance. His reputation. His career. Everything he had built by being the weapon that never questioned. Never hesitated. Never failed. He looked at the 3 glowing children. At their hybrid genetics written across their skin like flags they could never lower. At Owen Blackwood, who had nothing and no one, but who stood his ground anyway. At the choice that would define not just this moment, but everything he was and everything he might become. Jericho removed his helmet. His face was angular, marked with faint scale patterns along the cheekbones that no amount of genetic masking could fully hide. His eyes were amber, shot through with vertical pupils that betrayed his Ketharan heritage. For the first time in 20 years, he let someone see him completely. Owen's eyes widened, but he did not step back. "They will send others," Jericho said, his real voice rough and disuse. "The corporation does not accept failure. If I do not deliver, they will send a full retrieval team. Military grade, lethal force authorized. Then we keep running," Owen said. "Running will not be enough." Jericho looked at the children, at their impossible hope shining in the dying light. They need more than flight. They need sanctuary. Somewhere the corporations cannot reach. The smallest child smiled, showing those 2 sharp teeth. "You know such a place." Jericho did. Deep in the restricted zones, beyond corporate jurisdiction, there were places where the unwanted gathered, where hybrids and outcasts and genetic anomalies found shelter among their own kind. He had discovered them during his hunts, but never reported them. Some last shred of conscience had kept him silent, had let those sanctuaries remain hidden. "It is dangerous," he said. "The journey alone could kill you." Owen's laugh was bitter and exhausted. "More dangerous than staying here waiting for your replacements." Jericho looked at his helmet, at the tactical display still showing corporate messages, demands, threats. He thought about his mother, who had died protecting his secret. About his father, executed for the crime of loving across species lines. About every hybrid child hunted down and destroyed because they represented something the Cure could not control. He crushed the helmet under his boot, severing the connection. "We leave now," Jericho said. "My ship is hidden 2 kilometers north. It has enough fuel to reach the outer networks, but after that, we are on our own." The children cheered, their glow brightening with excitement. Owen sagged with relief, the weight of solitary protection finally shared. And Jericho Vance, hunter and weapon and lifetime, fugitive from his own nature, picked up the smallest child and felt something long dormant stir in his chest. Purpose, real purpose. Not the kind bought with credits, but the kind earned through choice. They moved through the settlement as the sun set, throwing long shadows across the abandoned machinery. Behind them, Jericho heard the distant whine of engines. The retrieval team right on schedule. But by the time they arrived, all they would find was a broken helmet and a cold trail leading nowhere. Jericho had finally failed a contract, and for the first time in his life, failure felt like winning. Dr. Miriam Cross had seen many impossible things in her 15 years running the underground network. She had sheltered telepaths whose minds leaked into reality, shapeshifters caught between forms, is that had somehow developed souls. The sanctuary she maintained in the bones of an old generation ship was home to every variety of genetic outcast the universe could produce. But watching 3 glowing children demonstrate molecular reconstruction on a steel plate while their exhausted guardian and a reformed bounty hunter stood by, Miriam realized she was witnessing something entirely new. They should not be able to do that, she said, adjusting her scanner. Matter manipulation requires massive energy expenditure. They are children. Their cellular structures should not be developed enough to channel that kind of power. Owen slumped in the observation chair, his face gray with exhaustion. They have been developing since before birth. Thessaly said they were learning through her neural link. I think they absorbed decades of knowledge in the womb. Impossible, Miriam muttered, but her scanner told a different story. The children's cells were operating at efficiency levels that defied thermodynamics. They generated energy through some kind of fusion process happening at the molecular level, turning ambient matter into fuel. They were living reactors, impossibly advanced. Jericho stood by the door, his Ketharan features uncovered, his augmented body tense. How long until the corporations track us here? They should not be able to find us at all, Miriam said. This ship is shielded, hidden in a debris field, running on passive systems only. Unless someone gave them our exact coordinates, we are invisible. The middle child looked up from its molecular experiments. They do not need coordinates. They can follow our resonance. Miriam's blood went cold. What resonance? We are connected to the Helios genetic database, the child explained calmly. They can track us through quantum entanglement with the original samples. Distance does not matter. Time does not matter. They will always know where we are. Owen stood up so fast his chair fell over. You never mentioned this. You never asked, the smallest child said, its logic infuriatingly sound. Jericho slammed his fist into the wall, leaving a dent. Then this was pointless. We led them straight here. To all of these people. He gestured at the sanctuary, beyond the observation room, where dozens of hybrid beings lived in fragile peace. Miriam's mind raced. The sanctuary protocol had always been clear. If corporate forces discovered them, they scattered. Ships launched in every direction, refugees dispersing across known space, the network going dark for years until it was safe to reconnect. But that took time. Time to evacuate, time to coordinate, time they did not have. How long? She demanded. The eldest child closed its eyes, its glow pulsing as it accessed information through channels Miriam could not begin to understand. They are already here. 14 ships. Military configuration. Boarding parties assembling now. Alarms screamed through the sanctuary. Miriam's communication panel exploded with panicked messages. External sensors showed the corporate fleet materializing from jump space, weapons hot, boarding craft deploying like a swarm of steel wasps. Evacuation protocol, Miriam shouted into the comms. All residents to escape pods. This is not a drill. But even as she gave the order, she knew they could not move fast enough. The sanctuary held 300 souls, many of them children, many of them sick or injured. The pods could hold perhaps half that number, and launching would make them easy targets. This was not an evacuation. This was a massacre in slow motion. Owen grabbed the 3 hybrid children, pulling them close. There has to be a way out. Some kind of defense system. We are a hospital, not a fortress, Miriam said, her voice breaking. We have medical equipment, not weapons. I never thought I never prepared for this. Jericho was already moving, his military training taking over. Seal the internal bulkheads. Make them fight for every corridor. It might buy enough time for the pods to launch. The eldest child pulled away from Owen's grip and walked to the center of the room. Its siblings joined it, forming a triangle, their glows synchronizing into a single pulsing rhythm. There is another way, it said. Miriam's scanner went haywire as energy levels in the room spiked beyond measurement. The children's bodies brightened until looking at them directly was painful. The air itself seemed to vibrate with potential. What are they doing? Owen shouted over the rising hum. Connecting, the middle child said, its voice layered with harmonics. Amplifying, becoming. The smallest child looked at Owen with ancient sadness. We told you we were more than you knew. More than human. More than alien. We are the bridge between what was and what comes next. Light exploded from the three children, but instead of dispersing, it formed a network, spreading through the sanctuary like luminous roots. Miriam watched in awe as the energy touched every hybrid being in the ship, every outcast and reject and impossible life. The network connected them all, hundreds of different genetic patterns linking into a single vast consciousness. They are creating a collective, Miriam breathed, using themselves as the neural core. The ship shuddered as the corporate forces began cutting through the hull. Breach alarms wailed. Through the external cameras, Miriam saw armored soldiers pouring into the sanctuary's outer sections. Their weapons raised, their orders clear. But as they advanced, they encountered the network. The hybrid residents did not fight individually. They moved as one, their actions perfectly coordinated, their abilities combining in ways that should not work. A telepath amplified a shapeshifter's mass, creating a living barrier. An II consciousness inhabited the ship's dormant weapon systems, bringing ancient defense turrets online. A precognitive child fed targeting data to a being that could manipulate probability, turning certain hits into impossible misses. The corporate soldiers fell back, confused, overwhelmed by opposition that fought with impossible unity. In the observation room, the three children blazed like newborn stars. Owen tried to reach them, but the energy field pushed him back. He could only watch as the beings he had tried to protect transcended into something beyond his understanding. They are burning themselves out, Miriam said, reading her scanner through tears. The energy expenditure is unsustainable. They are using their own life force to power the network. How long? Jericho asked, his voice hollow. Minutes. Maybe less. Owen fell to his knees. No, I did not save them just to watch them die. The eldest child's voice filled the room, coming from everywhere and nowhere. You did not save us, Father. You freed us. Gave us time to become what we were meant to be. Not weapons. Not products. But the first note of a new song. The corporate fleet regrouped, preparing for a final assault. Their commanders screamed orders, demanding results, demanding the hybrid specimens, demanding their property returned. But the sanctuary's defenders held, united through the children's network, fighting not just for survival, but for the right to exist. Then the smallest child spoke one final time. The resonance that led them here works both ways. We can send it back. Overload their systems. Destroy their fleet. But it will take everything we have. Do not, Owen begged. Please. There has to be another way. There is always another way, the middle child said gently. But this is the one that saves everyone else. Miriam understood first. They are not just destroying the fleet. They are erasing the genetic database, breaking the quantum link, making it impossible for the corporations to track any hybrid ever again. The three children pulsed in unison, their light reaching a crescendo that made reality itself seem thin. Owen screamed, reaching for them, but Jericho held him back, tears streaming down his scarred face. The light shot outward, following the quantum entanglement back to its source. Across space, the corporate fleet's systems overloaded. Ships exploded in cascading failures. The Helios genetic database, light years away, melted into slag as energy poured through impossible connections. And in the sanctuary, the 3 children collapsed. Their glow faded. Their breathing stopped. The network dissolved, leaving 300 hybrid beings standing alone again. Free but grieving. Owen caught the smallest child as it fell, cradling the tiny body against his chest. No glow remained. No movement. Just a small, perfect face frozen in peace. Miriam checked for vital signs she knew she would not find. Jericho stood like a statue, his hand on the eldest child's head, unable to accept what his eyes told him. But then the middle child's finger twitched. Miriam's scanner registered a pulse. Faint, slow, but present. She checked the others. The same weak signals, life hanging by the thinnest thread. "They are alive," she whispered. Barely, but alive. Owen's sob of relief echoed through the room. He held the children closer, his tears falling on their still faces. The energy expenditure should have killed them, Miriam said, working frantically, injecting stabilizers, setting up life support. But they evolved even that. Found a way to survive the impossible. Jericho helped move the children to medical pods, his hand surprisingly gentle. "What happens now?" Miriam looked at the sanctuary's residents gathering outside, at the destroyed corporate fleet on the scanners, at the 3 children sleeping in their pods. "Now we rebuild," she said. "We scatter the network deeper. We prepare for the next threat. And we raise these children to understand what they are. Not the end of the old way, but the beginning of something new." Owen placed his hand on the nearest pod, looking at the small figure inside. "I never wanted to be a father. None of us wanted to be what we are," Jericho said, his Ketharan markings visible in the medical bay's light. "But we become it anyway." Miriam activated the sanctuary's engines. They would move to a new location, establish new protocols, continue the work of sheltering those the universe rejected. But something had changed. The hybrids had fought together, won together, proven their right to exist. The 3 children slept, their bodies healing, their potential infinite. They had saved everyone by sacrificing themselves, and in doing so, had shown the universe that the future belonged not to the pure, but to the mixed, the combined, the impossible made real. Owen Blackwood, botanist and accidental father, stood watch over them. Jericho Vance, hunter-turned-protector, guarded the door. And Dr. Miriam Cross, keeper of outcasts, plotted a course toward tomorrow. The Luminescent Bargain had been paid in full, and its price had bought more than survival. It had bought hope.